You're listening to the BBC World Service. I'm Lise Doucette and this is News Hour. Bradley Manning, the soldier accused of leaking state secrets to WikiLeaks, has now been formally charged with 22 counts, including aiding the enemy. He's accused of passing on hundreds of thousands of secret documents to the whistleblowing website. US public opinion and international reaction is very much divided. Some hail the soldier as a hero. Others condemn him for posing such a grave threat to national security. To discuss the issue, we're joined from New York by Clifford May, the president of the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies, a counter-terrorism organisation set up after the September 11th attacks. And Chase Madar also joins us from New York, a writer and journalist whose forthcoming book is titled The Passion of Bradley Manning. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let me begin with you, Chase, just judging by the title of your book. What is The Passion of Bradley Manning?
Well, at the risk of sounding outrageous, I'll say that knowing what your government is doing is really not such a bad thing. In fact, the threat to our national security over the past 10 years hasn't been leaks and whistleblowers like brave Bradley Manning. It's been our government's incredibly excessive secrecy. Washington classifies some 77 million documents every year. It's really beyond reason. And when we as a nation don't know what our government is doing, we make some pretty disastrous decisions. Look at the Iraq War, which we rushed into, in large part because of government secrecy, distortion, and even some downright lies. The cost of this secrecy is enormous. Over 100,000 Iraqis dead, 4,500 U.S. soldiers dead, at a price of some $3 trillion. Not many people outside Washington see this as a success or that it served our interests. And this is precisely what happens when we make uninformed decisions, why we in America should be very grateful to Bradley Manning and groups like WikiLeaks that bring us information that we need.
You don't think that he did something illegal? He's now being charged with the most serious of crimes, including aiding the enemy.
Oh, I don't think there's any question that he broke the law. The charge that he aided the enemy is the most serious charge. It's also the most ridiculous, because just the fact that Al-Qaeda had access, like everyone else in the world, to the WikiLeaks disclosures, it's like arguing that Nike shoes is aided terrorism because some terrorists have bought their product.
Clifford May?
Well, here's what we agree on. Bradley Manning broke the law. I think that's probably the case. We all think that's the case. A court will decide that. But if a soldier steals classified information, hundreds of thousands of documents in this case, more than you could possibly have read, and if he releases or leaks those documents, he has committed a crime, many crimes possibly. He will face a court-martial and he will pay a penalty. There's no army in the world, no military in the world that can operate in any other way but that. Now, I think a lot of folks are using this trial and this man's case to push a lot of other issues, as you just heard, to relitigate the intervention in Iraq, to blame the U.S. for all the deaths, even if they were caused by al-Qaeda or suicide bombers or death squads financed and instructed by Iran. Still, these are all America's fault. America's to blame. And therefore, releasing any and all classified documents without even bothering to read them somehow makes you a hero. That's a specific agenda that some people have. But I disagree, Lise, with what you said in your introduction, that this is, if there are divisions, it's not down the middle. If you look at people like Hillary Clinton, if you look at people like Barack Obama, Robert Gates, all people who served a Democratic and serve a Democratic administration, they all believe that Bradley Manning committed a crime, must face a court-martial, and must pay a penalty. Republicans agree with that as well. There are only people, I would say, on the extremes who disagree, and again, I think they're using this to push other agendas.
And Clifford, do you think, what about what the defence says, that the material published did little or no harm to national security?
Well, I think that's something that we don't really know what the defense is, how the defense will present its case. I think it makes sense for them to say it didn't do a lot of harm, because obviously if it did a tremendous amount of harm, if there are deaths that you can show as a result of this, innocent people, that's going to be more serious for Bradley Manning, not just in terms of the various indictments that are going to come down. We don't know exactly which those will be, but also in terms of the punishment he will suffer. Look, if I were to steal from anybody 100,000 of their documents and release them, I could say, on the one hand, I didn't do any harm, so don't punish me for that. I could say there were things in there that people should know, crimes that I think were committed, therefore I'm a noble character. But the fact of the matter is, if I steal your possessions and I release them, I have committed a crime. We have a volunteer army in the U.S. Bradley Manning chose to join the Army. He chose to take a job in which he would deal with classified information. He took an oath. His job was to protect that classified information. Instead, he stole it and released it. He must pay a price for that.
Chase Mudder, what do you say to Clifford's, because this is a cross-party thing, in fact only a very small minority actually would rise to the defence of what Bradley Manning did?
Well, the idea that government should be at least partially transparent and should share important information with the public, especially about wars. This is nothing radical or utopian, and it was not invented yesterday by WikiLeaks. In fact, it's a very old idea, and it's long been central to the American political tradition. In fact, it was James Madison who said that a popular government without popular information is but a prelude to a tragedy or a farce. And James Madison, to those listeners unfamiliar with our history, he was not some Marxist radical. He was the fourth president of our country and the primary author of our Constitution. This isn't a matter of idealism. It's an intensely practical matter. And if you don't know what government is doing, you're going to have disasters. And with all respect to Clifford May and his neoconservative think tank, our country's foreign policy elite has brought us a great deal of failure and disaster in the past 10 years. They very badly need public supervision, and that's what WikiLeaks and Bradley Manning have brought to bear.
But Chase, don't you? I mean, Clifford makes the point that that's not the place to resolve it. In this case of someone who you both agree that he broke the law, it could mean everyone would then use illegal means to make their political point.
I do not see any damage from these disclosures. I see a great deal of damage because the American government has not leveled and been straight with us, the people. That's been a real problem.
You know, I'm all for transparency in government. I'm all for a Freedom of Information Act. I'm all for journalistic freedom. It is different when you're wearing the uniform of your country and you have a job to do and you're getting paid to do it and you violate your oath and you violate the laws, you have to pay a price. Now, that's very different, for example, than a newspaper even getting information from somebody like Bradley Manning and then going ahead and publish it. That is a Freedom of Information issue, but we're confusing the two. You cannot pursue transparency by telling everybody in government and everybody in the military that they are free to steal and distribute all and any documents, including those that are marked secret or classified. There is a separate issue, quite separate, about whether we classified too many documents, whether too much is secret. I'm happy to engage in a debate on that. I probably think there is too much classification going on. That's absolutely true. But as you say, Lise, the solution to that is not for a private first class to steal documents and dump them.
Clifford May, Chase Mudder, thank you both very much for your very clear thoughts on a very important issue.